Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Blah. Thank you for joining me tonight. I got a few things that may well be of interest to you. I certainly hope so. And as always, we start with, well, where were we the last time we were? And to use that, I've been talking about Geordie expressions in recent weeks. Tomorrow night from 7:30, yes, I know it's early. It'll make sense as soon as you see what it is where we are and all of the places we are. Tomorrow night, 7:30, we're trying a different kind of show because we basically didn't have any choice this particular week. I'll explain all that to you tomorrow. However, tomorrow, for anybody that's ever visited Tyneside, especially those that live within 100 miles of the River Tyne, that will be most of you. Something that you should know about that you probably don't know about, but you really should, because it's at the heart of the Great North, and you should know about it, but I bet most of you don't. I think you'll be fascinated by it. However, the Blah last week was at Thornley Woods, in fact, recommended by Penny and Simon. Thank you very much to the pair of you for suggesting that we go to a place we haven't been before. And we've heard a few noises here and there and a few screamy things in the distance. You never know. We did hear a few voices, but once again, you're not a million miles away from where people are. So in my heart of hearts, I had a lovely night. I hope you guys had a good night too with us. Amazing history, no question about it. And this is kind of what the challenge was. When those guys said, why don't you come down there? We've tried to look up the history and we couldn't find pretty much anything, because you got to go way back and you've got to know how to do it and where to look. And it can be a complex kind of thing. So don't blame me for not coming up with a lot. However, we did come up with an awful lot of amazing history right there in the Great North Forest of yesteryear. As for ghosts, as for spirits, did you see? We completely struck out. Not a sausage. As Eric Idle from Monty Python once said, bugger all, nothing. Didn't feel it, didn't see it, didn't hear anything that was shock or a gasp. Not really. And it's frustrating, but it's best to be honest about this kind of thing. Now, does that mean that anybody that ever goes there doesn't say anything? Because that young couple said that they had an experience there. They saw a full-bodied figure. She felt frightened and got a bit of a shock. So it doesn't mean there's nothing there. It just means when we were there, we didn't get a sniff, not of absolutely anything at all. And that's all right. And if you think about it, whenever you guys, if you are the sort that go out and have a look for such things, how many times have you actually 100%, ta-da? You got to be lucky. It's harder than fishing. You know, with fishing, you might get an old boot. At least you got something to look at the end of a rod. If you go out looking for stuff that's ethereal, there's a fairly strong chance you're going to come back empty-handed. But it's not even that it's all about. It's finding out about the places where you live. We were literally 5 minutes from Swalwell. 5 minutes from Swalwell. Literally just around the corner. We were 5 minutes from Rowlands Gill with Leighton. 5 minutes. We were 10 minutes from Gateshead. And we were in the middle of a place that most of you will never, ever have been. And it's amazing. And it's part of that whole Derwent Valley thing. Now, we've done little bits of Derwent Valley, and there will be more to come from that neck of the woods. But I just think that for you guys to point something out because something happened to you, that's very personal for you, and you know what you saw, you know what you felt. So if we go and have a look, don't ever feel disappointed if we come back and we say, well, we didn't get anything. Just, you'll know yourself that how many times have you switched most haunted on and they've gone, It's only a 5-minute show tonight, nothing yet. Or at the end of a show, how many times have they said on that show, well, we came to the hall and we didn't find a thing? That's the difference. Because the reality is you don't get anything. We go and we try hard. We open ourselves up wide. We see what we get. And then it's up to you guys. Because discount 95%. So we're already batting every show against all odds, if you think about it. Because we're looking for 5%. And you're going to wipe out 95%. So will there be any twinkle in that 5? That's down to you. And that's what makes the whole thing as fascinating as it is. But I'd rather be straight with you. Didn't get a thing. Not a tingle, not a back of the neck going, doo. Not really. But I still thought it was a good night, and I hope you guys did too. Anyway, struck out. Tried to hit the ball, missed it completely. And a few of you sent little messages in. Jenny said, love the route. Hope we can get more subscribers. Well, you're an elite group. You are the SAS. You are the special ones. And yes, we believe that what we do should have a massive audience. I understand. I kind of get. We are niche, and that's fine. Robson's World isn't. That's Wade's got all kinds of people that listen to the shows we do there and love them all over the world. I understand that this other thing that we do is a little bit different. So tomorrow night, we're trying something that in turn is a little bit different. Not a million miles away from what we do, but different. And I think you really like it. And I think a great many of you will recognize most of the places where we are tomorrow evening. I'll give you a clue to that a bit later on. Now, Alistair, you know, he went away, had a bit of a holiday for Father's Day. Well, he said, the ghost trails are really great. They really inspire me. The place that you were at was really creepy during the day, let alone at night. And it was. Doesn't mean you're going to get a coconut at the end of it, but it really was. And he's decided that he was going to dive back and get involved. Now, he didn't go out on a full tour this week, but I'll let Ali explain that whole thing. Thanks, Ali. Nice work again, as always. And in glorious colour.
Hi, Alan, and Tony, and all the supporters. As you know, I've just been away for a trip with the family. And I haven't done a investigation this week. But I did one a few months ago, a little church in a little village in the borders called Ancrum. The church is called St. Anne's, who St. Anne was the Virgin Mary's mother, if anybody wanted to know that bit of useless information. But it's very unusual because it's got a tower as well built onto it. It looks like a castle. Anyway, I took a few pictures. Not very long, there's only a few, and I just hope you want to see them. That's all I can say, really. Till next week. Hope you enjoy them. I've tried my best. I'm not very good at it, but here goes. You can watch them anyway. Thank you, bye.
How about that? I think that's pretty damn good. Nice one, Ali. Good work. Incidentally, that wasn't Ancrum. It was Ancroft. that he was at, just to put it right. He realized after he put the video together that he'd made that mistake. So he was in Ancroft, if you're wondering. A proper defensive tower on a church. Interesting. A doorway that had been blocked up with stone. Why? Bit of an oddity. And a leper window. Don't know whether you saw that. A little window so that the poor, and you know, they call them leper windows as if to say, well, we can't let them in because they're lepers. The vast majority were poor, and therefore, if they didn't have money to put on the plate, they didn't let them in the church. But we want to pray to our God. Only if you can afford it. Stay outside, look through the window. If you're not going to put any money on our coffers to keep us living in the style we've become accustomed to on your cash. Fascinating. Just fascinating. So thank you very much. And again, the church has Saint Anne. Why is Anne a martyr? Because she gave birth to a young girl who fell pregnant at the age of 12. Okay. Whoever impregnated a 12-year-old girl, what would we call them today? Times changed, don't they? Anyway, Keith was on his way home from work at 3 o'clock in the morning, saw a planet in the sky. Wow. Took a picture from Newbiggin, from the Church Point car park, or carport, should I say. He said it was a strange light low in the sky. It was not a street light. When he took the photograph, there was no visible light anywhere. Now, he did send that picture in, so I can't show it to you. Thanks, Keith, for bothering. And I think you will be able to see a strange light in the sky that wasn't there when he took the photograph. Do you see it? Just above the house? Looks like that could be the North Star, right in the center of your picture. But it's the light down by the building. It's not a street light. When he took the photograph, there was no light there at all, but he'd seen something going down behind the building, and then he's managed to capture that light. Nice shot, nice sky, nice and moody. Good work to you. Then, Sheena, she says she's really enjoying Robson's World. Now, she's super into Queen Elizabeth I. Now, I happened to mention that I was putting together a special just about it. It's one of those, you know, we do things called Walking in the Footsteps of Jack the Ripper, the Braveheart, the real Robin Hood, the real King Arthur, the real Queen Elizabeth I. What a story. I mean, just what a knockout story the whole thing is. So that's coming, and she's looking forward to that as well. Thanks, Sheena. All the best. Summer solstice has arrived. The longest day. And big thanks to Jenny, who sent me the 5 stars of the pentagram. And that is fire, water, earth, sky, and spirit. So thank you very much indeed for that. Karen, Lynn, Norma, Lee, Maria, Dawn, Roy, Heidi, Heather, Sarah, Lorraine, Pat, Elaine, Linda, Sam, Yvonne, and Tony. Thank you all very much for your messages. I do appreciate them all very much indeed. Also, Jim, love your hunts as ever. Thank you. And Jason, who lives in Crawcrook, says, Alan, what was the name of the place you went where you went underneath the altar of a church that was desecrated and the owner came out, caught you, and called you a bastard? That was a place called Lucidio. It's on the outskirts of Milan, and they've got a massive cross on the altar and a pulpit where the priest would stand. Directly behind that, they've got walls directly behind the altar where the priest would get his raiments on, surrounded by open coffins of mummified dead saints, supposedly. saints or dead priests. And you can see them open to the elements, mummified. Now, it was already quite spooky. We did 2 TV shows there, and I did 2 radio shows from there. The second night, spending the whole 4 hours just going around the place. And we were told that they are the mummified remains of decapitated priests buried underneath the altar. And they showed me where the door was. He says, but don't go down there. Of course, I went. The first place I wanted to go was down there. And we went down and we found bound, bandaged, kind of in the same way you would an Egyptian mummy, human heads. And we found the torsos, the headless bodies under there, dark, dusty. There's a place in Dublin's Fair City that we went to and saw mummies in one of the crypts just along the banks of the Liffey on a couple of our trips that we've made. And it was kind of similar, but apparently the bodies are just a bit juicier. They're less dried out because they've been bound, as I say, like Egyptians. And when the morning came, little did I know, but the owner of the entire area of Lucerio decided he was going to listen, and he had his daughter translate the show that I did from his establishment, which is a massive farm square with a cathedral, and on the roof of the cathedral is the image of Satan sitting on God's throne, surrounded by demons rather than cherubs. It's the first time I'd ever seen such a thing, and it was quite a thing, I have to say. But he also heard me go down into the crypt, and while I was on air talking to people back on the Night Owls program, he burst in and called me a number of particularly nasty Italian rude words, and bastardo happened to be one of them. So it was Lucerio, just outside of Milan. One of the scariest things about that place is it's surrounded by paddy fields where they grow rice, some of the greatest rice on earth, to make risottos. Fantastic. They had a catering crew in there for us, and the 2 large Italian ladies that cooked a 4-cheese risotto. And I wasn't huge into risotto, but I am now, thanks to them. That was amazing. But because you're surrounded by wetland, which is essentially what it is, they had countless mosquitoes. The only difference between the little mozzies that we get and the mosquitoes that were there, the mosquitoes where we come from, they're kind of, just teeny weeny. They knack and they leave a bleb just the same. But the Italian ones were about this size. And I saw one prod me on my arm, and I saw it was like he was putting his proboscis, his snout, with like a sword into my arm. And I saw it go in about half an inch. You think, not good. Not in you, slapping them down and squishing them and squashing them. It was an interesting experience. Now, we hopefully also, a big thanks to everybody involved with trying to get us an indoor show for next week. Fingers crossed, we're working on that as we speak. Julie, Pam, and Paula, we miss you on the radio so much. Everybody knows now that radio is dead, and it's such a shame. I share the feeling, absolutely. Oh, the punt. We are getting close to the end of the month. Now, we do a little 50 pence punt. Don't know how much longer we're going to keep doing it, but because we want to change things up and we want to pivot and do other things and hopefully make things even more interesting for you. But this month we have things like a witch's altar, with all of the stuff and crystals and runes and a grimoire and an altar cloth and bowls and dishes and spoons and candles. All the gear you could possibly want is in that collection. I think there's something like 64 different pieces, and you get all of the various essences that you would need to create spells. We've also got a virtual reality headset that you place your telephone in the front bit and you look through the goggles, you get the app, and suddenly everything you look at is virtual reality. If you fancy one of them, some semi-precious stones. We've got a plaque to keep your home blessed. We've got a headlight. We've got Memento Mori, remember you must die. And on the back, so don't forget to live, because we do. Lots of tarot based on some of the ancient horror characters of old. We also have a plaque to hang outside your house to show that you're interested in the esoteric and the ethereal. I like that thing. Nice. It's not huge either. It's just a nice little addition to the outside of your home. So all of those things will go to 3 people, and hopefully you can be one of them. That's our 50 pence month. Ends at the end of the month, and all of the winners will be announced on Robson's World on the first day of the month. Okay, so that's how we work it. Stefan has sent a picture in, I think, with his mother, and you might recognize where they are. They are in the Northumbrian paper. So there you go. Thanks for sending that in. If any of you guys want to send pics in, get them in. We'll get them on. Not a worry. And Davey loved the Genghis Khan show reel that we put out advertising one of the shows that's out this week. Genghis Khan, cracking show. I mean, you've heard the name and you think, well, I know all I need to know about them. Everybody should know everything about this. It's incredible. And the impact that it had on Britain was incredible. And the story is like just gobsmacking. The Walking in the Footsteps of Genghis Khan, it's out this week. And we also have another one about Hollow Earth. Is the Earth hollow? Do ships and UFOs come out of planet Earth? Is there stuff down below? And we know there's been 1,000 films where prehistoric cavemen and women, usually scantily clad, live beneath our feet and they're doing stuff. I always remember getting really freaked when I saw the original film, The Descent, and all those kind of creatures were lurking in the dark. I made the mistake of watching it when I was really tired. I'd been up since 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'd done 2 gigs and then gone to work till 2 o'clock the following morning. And I was so buzzing with everything that had happened, couldn't sleep. So I put The Descent on that I hadn't seen before and ended up screaming and waking everybody up. Great film, made by somebody from the Northeast as well. So if you haven't seen it, do check it out. It's a top film. Now, just let me give you a click if I can find it. Oh, there it is. I'm fairly sure that is the picture. If you've ever been to a place in the Northeast called Newcastle upon Tyne, you may have seen this. Do you know where it is? It's in Old Eldon Square. Now, it's a tribute to those that lost their lives in the First World War, 1914 to 1918. And it's a wonderful tribute. But it's who it is, has always... I love the imagery. If you said, we're just putting a lovely statue of a knight killing a dragon to symbolize the battle of good over evil, presuming that all dragons are evil because they haven't really existed. Now, St. George is our patron saint, and we are English. Should we be proud of our patron saint? Well, yeah, the problem is he doesn't come from England. He comes from a place called Cappadocia, which nowadays is southern Turkey. So he was Turkish if he existed at all. Now, even if you look him up officially in history books, the only people that say he existed are the Christians. And the Christians want people to revere their saints. And the problem is, I've had a fairly close look at this. And the people in Cappadocia said, there's nobody around here with that name. We've never had a George or a Giorgio, I presume it would be in Turkey. Have you tried the Greeks? Well, the Greeks say, well, we're not sure that we've ever. So nobody knows where he actually was supposed to be, which normally means he didn't exist at all. Now, there was a George of Cappadocia, but he wasn't a knight. And in various countries, Saint George is classed as a military saint because he represents all the best things about the army. Well, he was never in the army. And he also existed in the 300s, where he wouldn't be dressed like that, which is an outfit from around the 12 to 1300s. So there's already an awful lot wrong. Also, the saddlery that he has didn't come into being till the 1800s. So, well, a bit of a mess. So I took a greater look. George of Cappadocia, the only one they can find, was a notorious bishop who used to steal tax money. People would pay tax money to the government, but the church kept it and stole it. So is our patron saint a thieving bishop? Random. Now, the legend, because St. George, according to the story, became a martyr, became a saint, a Christian saint, because he refused to give up his religion. So they killed him. They actually decapitated him, according to the legend. Now, it's a legend, which means it may happen. There might be some kind of root of it. I couldn't find any root of it, but I did look, and I looked in a lot of places. If you read any Christian history, they call it Christian history. In other words, the Christians tell the story as if it's absolutely true. There's no root. I couldn't find a root for this fella at all. But the dragon story, the story of George of Cappadocia, 313 AD. Nobody knows what was going on back in the 300s or the 400s. And in the 400s, a lot of people started writing the Bible 400 years after stuff supposedly happened. But the people that it supposedly happened to aren't in the Roman history, and they're not in the Jewish history. And those two cultures wrote every damn thing down. So where does that leave? It doesn't leave us too many places to go. I love the fact that, but he's the Christians. He's a Christian saint. And what? He was a thieving bishop, yeah. Just tell them he was in the cavalry. Tell them that he killed a dragon. Okay. Then we all felt better about it. I looked into it even further. Let me crack on with where I went from there. Now, there's a Muslim legend about George, Saint George. The Muslims heard the story from the Christians. And the Muslims believe that Saint George, the same man, although how would you know, was killed 3 times and resurrected every time he got killed. Every time he got reborn, he woke up starving, like you would if you just died. And they would only feed him a piece of dry wood. But whenever he got hold of this dry wood, it turned into a tree and sprouted with fruit right in front of his eyes. And he fed on the fruit and he got stronger and he lived again. This happened 3 times, resurrected 3 times. Okay. After one of these deaths, the earth covered in darkness because God was so unhappy. Put the clouds on, put the clouds on. Now, when he actually died, now you're going to remember, he died 3 times, but he came back. He was resurrected 3 times, more than Jesus, if he existed. When he eventually died, God was really angry and really paid off, which always surprises me, because if there was a God that was everywhere, seeing everything, and he had the power to do what he liked, he didn't have to let him die. If he'd gone to the trouble to try and save him 3 times, you'd think he'd have kept on cracking on. But anyway, when he eventually died, The entire city he was in burned into flames, killing everybody living in the city, thousands of people. And God sent stormy winds, thunder, and lightning. Oh, I'm really annoyed now. There is no historical record in Muslim history for any of this, just what the imams told their people. In the same way that there's no proof and no history for all of the other stuff. Just if you go onto Christian sites, they'll tell you, oh, there's a ton of history. But when you look at history outside of religion, there's nothing there at all. Not a thing, just tumbleweed rolling along. It's the equivalent of asking a Newcastle supporter, what's the greatest team in the world? And expecting him to say anything other than Newcastle United, or asking a Man U fan, or a Tottenham fan, or a Sunderland fan, and they'd pick their own team, and that's exactly what the church have done. They'll not be biased or exaggerate, would they? No. In medieval times, it just doesn't stop, because the church, century after century, keep having to add a bit more on. In medieval times, the year 1100 to be exact, they declared that St. George was a giant man, an Englishman. No history at all. He was a giant man, a model of knighthood and chivalry. Now, he lived in the year 313. There was no knighthoods then. There was no official chivalry. Anyway, so even though he never existed, he was a giant of a man. He was a Christian, spoke English, probably had freckles and everything. If he lived anywhere, it was Greece, Turkey. They give you a huge area to say that's where he lived. And then when you ask all of the towns he was supposed to live in, they all say, no, he wasn't here. There's a church in São George, which is St. George, on the island of Madeira. They have relics of St. George. And people have asked, I love this, people have gone and they've said, because there is this controversy of where did he come from? Where did you get the relics from? You've got his bones, you've got some cloth, you've got a spear. Where did you get these relics from? God sent them. Now, I've checked with Amazon. Didn't happen. Who else could have delivered? What do you think? Anyway, that's an Elder Square. And you see, it keeps going. There was I can go on forever with this. And this is just one picture. I got hundreds. So bear with us. A book in 1866 said that he killed the dragon in Beirut. Now, if he existed at all, and we think not, he never visited England. He never even knew that there was a place called England, because back in 313, there wasn't an England. I know there's a song, there'll always be an England. Well, there didn't used to be. Okay. He's got a feast day that people revere him and pray to him. You know, all of these Christians who say in their own book, have no other gods before me, but let's all pray to this character. Feast day in every Christian country, some Muslim nations too. There's over 3,000 statues of St. George and the Dragon. Over 3,000. And at no point did anybody try and find out the truth. We just believe what these people tell us. It's dangerous. This is why, and I don't mind if you believe in everything that your priests or your vicars or your imams or your rabbis or whoever your holy person you look up to is. Just always think for yourself. Now, you might think that everything that I've said is terrible and horrible. I'm just being honest with what I could find, which is nothing. Like I was honest with my own stuff, couldn't find anything. And you've got to be willing to Give people the facts and then let people judge for themselves. If you want to believe everything he stands for, now you could argue he stands for good over evil. Champion, dip your bread, float your boat, happy days. But play nice with people that don't necessarily believe what you believe. I thought how one photograph got all of that stuff. And I couldn't help myself, so I apologize. If that came over as a tad self-indulgent, guilty as charged. Anyway, we got another one. Oh, I know we haven't. We've seen that. Anyway, on to this. Where do you think that is? Do you recognize any of it? We got a few picks for you for the moment. This is from Gray's Monument. Along the road, you can just see the end of where the Northern Goldsmiths is and the bottom of Northumberland Street. And we don't just stay in Newcastle. How many people recognize where that is? That building opposite said to be haunted too. Durham City. Brilliant. The indoor market where you used to get a lot of sweeties that had been out on the counter for so long they had dust on them. And a lovely statue there of a soldier aboard a horse wearing a bear skin. Anybody know where this is? That's on the Great North Road. That's on the edge of the town moor, heading up towards Gosforth. Is that your mum? Is that your nana? Now, if I asked you to name where this is, now this is in the early 1900s, from an area just outside of Newcastle that was completely countryside. That cottage and that picture in the early 1900s was taken in Heaton. Now, if you've been to Heaton over the last 20, 30, 40 years, you will know, can you get moved for houses, roads, and such? And yet it was a mixture of fields and farm cottages about 100 years ago. Newcastle city centre from back in the day. Some more of it. That's up Granger Street. And a bus taking people to the Haymarket, the old-fashioned buses that you could jump on the back and grab hold of the pool. And my dad used to say, I tried to jump on that bus, I am jiggered. How many people have ever used that phrase in the last 50 years? Not many, I guess. This is the centre of Durham again. Amazing architecture. Say what you like. They took so much money from poor people. They really built immaculate and brilliant buildings while the people lived in poverty. One of Newcastle United's teams from back in the early 1960s. There's a few people on there. Bob Moncur on the back row. Ivor Alchurch, who was a Welsh international footballer, was just missed off on the far right-hand side, just cut off, but he was on the shot. And there's a lot of McGrath on the back row. Can I identify many more? Not sure I can, to be honest. Some more Durham. Just imagine how much it would cost to create something similar today. Picture of Morpeth stepping stones where those spirits of the Victorian children are said to play. And I can absolutely see it happening. There's Morpeth from just behind one of the walls where Emily Davison's sitting at the present moment. And a shot of Newcastle before it got redeveloped. That's looking over to the Gateshead side where the Hilton had just been built. It's been more heavily tarted up, I suppose you would say. Recognize where this is, anybody? This is a tram. You'll see it's going down the lanes. It's attached to an electric cable above the bus itself. An ancient bus from way back. That's leading down. That's Jesmond Dean on the right-hand side. And that's the bridge where most Sundays you get all the arts and craftsy people along there selling their bits and bobs, or at least they always used to. Don't know whether it still happens. You guys would know if anybody does. Then we're back in Newcastle city centre again, at a time of trams and horses and carts. Look at the fashions of the women. Talk about Victorian. Newcastle and the Castle Keep, and a tobacconist and wines and spirits shop with Roman columns. I don't remember that from my lifetime at all, and I know it's not there now, obviously. Wonder how many people are still alive that can remember seeing that. Maybe worth asking your nana. Ye old Newcastle Central Station. With now, would it be after that? It wasn't haunted then that we know about. We know that one of the old station masters is said to walk there today. Now, you might be wondering, what's all the horse and carts about? They're the taxis. And yes, there are workers moving stuff, merchants, the equivalent of the white van man. And there's the equivalent of the taxis. Horses and carriages waiting for somebody to come up on the train who needs to be transported somewhere. Incredible buildings in all directions. Just great stuff. And again, down the long street that leads to Newcastle Cathedral from the central station. Trams again. And my memory, and when I was a very little boy, there were still some trams. And I remember seeing the sparking wires as they coined around the corner, to use a word from a previous week. Back in the day, old trains, an old choo-choo passing the castle. Bits of proper, we are the ghost story, and these are real ghosts of the past. Newcastle city centre again. And that bank on the corner is where a banker was hit on the head with a poker and killed when somebody robbed that building. And one of the back doors out a Windows arcade that's on that street, Market Street, the ghost appears at the metal gates, bleeding from the head. We've already had that. He's double edited it. Jesmond Dean, an old mill by a stream. More Newcastle. Imagine how cool it would be just to have one day walking up and down and saying, what is this? Is this Newcastle? Unbelievable. In a tram heading to Heaton. The centre of the city again, more trams, gas lights. Now, how many of you recognise this building? Now, if I say this photograph was taken from roughly the back of Gray's Monument, that building on the corner with the little alley that leads up to Phoenix, that's where Waterstones is based right now. Again, leading down towards Newcastle Cathedral. The exhibition park and the bandstand and a young Victorian lady sitting enjoying the sun, like some of you guys have done, judging by the whinges and moans about peeling skin and bad backs and such. How many of you recognise this too? Come on, special award if you can recognise that. That's the original Queen Victoria Infirmary. Now, when that photograph was taken, it was called St. James's Infirmary because it's right near St. James's Park. and it's now all covered over and rebuilt and redesigned. Done a few charity shows on that little bit of ground, which is now car park just outside the front. Leading down Dean Street to the quayside and the bank that leads up next to the Dog Leap stairs. Newcastle Cathedral that was bombarded with human heads at one point when the Scots were trying to hold the city siege, and of course they won. Oh, hang on, I'm saving that one just for a second. This is a swing bridge. I've never seen it open. I genuinely have never seen it open. And there is a picture of a tug pulling a steamship through the gap when the bridge was open. Never seen that. And how many of you recognize this? Anybody danced on that sucker? The Tuxedo Princess was docked in Gateshead for a while. There's a very famous ghost story about some security guards that while they were standing just up the gangplank to allow people to come in and have their dance on the rotating dance floor, that everybody's fell off at one point or another. At least I have, speaking for myself. And they saw a burning figure on the riverbank. Now, whether this was an echo of the great fire of Gateshead, Newcastle, who knows? But that's what they saw. And I've just had a little ting on my phone from Ray, who says, why did the English choose that George? It was King Edward III, way back in the day. King Edward III wanted to pick somebody that was heroic and military. And he asked the church and said, do you have anybody that we can have as our saint? Somebody in the military, somebody who was brave and proud and true and strong, and nobody could ever criticize him. Sorry. And they picked, the church came to King Edward and said, Saint George. And why? He was an Englishman. He was in the army. If he existed at all, he was a thieving bishop. But the church turned him into a hero because he killed the dragon. So he's our patron saint. Anyway, there you go. Now, it's not being unpatriotic. Don't think it is. Because I love where I live. I love the nation. But just tell the truth. You know, there's enough BS on planet Earth. Just tell us the truth about everything. That'd be fine. As I mentioned, tomorrow, stuff every northerner should know and doesn't about a key moment in the Geordie nation. That's what's happening tomorrow. A couple of other quick ones. We got this one. The River Tyne, when the banks of the Tyne were very, very different with barges and such. And there's one or two more, I think, just one or two more. Or am I there? No, I think I'm there. Yes, I'm quietly confident that I'm there. Already mentioned this was out this week. Or this may be tomorrow. Dark Jamaica and the Plague Island. No, I think that was Wednesday. No, it was Wednesday gone. I beg your pardon. So we had a special offer 2 for 1. Hopefully you did not miss it. Anyway, we've got some funnies coming your way in a second. Share them with you soon. I said that there was an image that I kind of showed you that I shouldn't have. And it's this one. How many of you recognize what that is and where it is? You will see that the Tynemouth Priory is there with loads of other buildings that just aren't there anymore. Now, look to the very, very end. You will see that there's a piece of rock at the very end, far left of the land, where there's like a square bit of rock. This is the slope that the Jingling Geordie used to live on. Now, when we did our Tynemouth visit, we mentioned the Jingling Geordie's hole. And it's not nice to talk about somebody's hole, but it was the Jingling Geordie's hole. A pirate from the 1600s used the cave to spy on incoming ships so that his ship could lie in wait, chase any fully laden vessels onto the Black Middens. And then when they crashed and wrecked on the rocks, his men would pile out and plunder the cargo. Instead of helping anybody that was drowning, grab all the goods and beetle off. Plunder the cargo. And there was said to be a cove full of treasure. A cove full of treasure. Now, there's two versions of the story. One was that he left some treasure in there and it's still there to this day because they never found the place. And then they asked the church to confirm what had happened. And the Christians, this was in 1822, said that Sir Walter, no surname, so you can't check it up, found the cove, ignored the ghost of the Jingling Geordie and the dragon that was in the cave. There was a dragon in there, according to the Christians, guarding the treasure. Well, Sir Walter found a golden bugle and blew it 3 times, and a huge gate opened and a massive hall appeared underneath all of those buildings in Tynemouth. And they found it was full of jasper and crystal columns holding up a golden ceiling. And there were huge piles of gold everywhere. And Sir Walter found the gold and he became the lord of 100 castles. Although the church couldn't name any of the castles and couldn't give Walter's surname or anything. And the whole point was only a Christian can defeat evil. Now, you can believe that if you wish, or you can believe the non-Christian version, which is a pirate lived there, used to spy on ships, got them all bust up on the Black Middens, and there are 17 historically recorded ships going to ground on the Black Midden around that time, and many of the ships had their goods plundered. Historical fact. And they claim that from time to time around that area of Tynemouth, on the beach and certainly on the headland, you can occasionally hear the jingling of the Jingling Geordie, who happened to wear bells and fetters on his clothes so that they could attract people's attention. He wanted to be a bit of a star, a bit of a celeb. And he kind of was, because we're still talking about him now. So that is still pretty good. And also, this is, again, I don't know if you heard a brief ting, but someone has just sent me another message and said the Romans had altars to their gods, and that there is an image of the Tyne god outside the Civic Centre. It's not actually the Tyne god. That's, sorry, I put it the wrong way. That is the river god. And it's not just for the Tyne, it's for 8 other rivers. And the whole idea was that the Romans believed and set up altars to the water gods, Neptune and Oceanus. Now, they were copying the pagans who revered the rivers, not gods, not nymphs, not princes and princesses and wizards, none of that. This was long before there was anything like Wicca or Gardnerian or any of these other witchy kind of religions. The ancient pagans believed that we all came from the water, because we did. And this was literally about close to 3,000 years before Darwin discovered evolution. They knew we came from the water. How? I don't know. But it's fascinating. And they would always give a tribute. They'd leave a tribute in a river as a thank you to the water for providing food and liquid to keep us hydrated and all of that stuff. The Roman altars, Neptune and Oceanus, connecting Pons Alius, their name for Newcastle, with the rest of their establishments down south. The Romans used to call them the spirits of protection when the old school pagans just thought it was water, and water it was, leaving their tributes as ever. A couple of other brief things. Julie, Pam, and Paula, miss you on the radio. Thank you very much. Hi to Stefan and his sister. Davy, love that. Oh, we've done that already. St. George, we've done that. We've got some clues as to where we are tomorrow. Oh, hang on, get rid of that. And signs. I've been inundated with signs this week. Nothing on the I know we've been doing Geordie a bit. Tomorrow, taking that whole Geordie thing to a new level. Tomorrow. Stuff you don't know that you should know. Everybody should know. I knew a bit of it. Didn't know as much as I thought I knew. Fascinating. Tomorrow, come join us. 7:30, mind, tomorrow. Now, the sign thing, where's all my signs? I'll start at the bottom and work backwards, I think. Stuff like this. I don't know whether you fancy that. It's in one of the Germanic countries. Where did you go for your holidays? Really? Oh, did you go there? Where were you last night? Guten Nacht. Okay. Where did you go? What? I went. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I think we've all smelled a place like that, haven't we? The very first time. Now, I love Redcar. Don't jump on me, Redcar folk. First time I went to Redcar, it was before they got rid of that awful chemical smell that used to sweep along the beach with a chemical plant at both ends of Redcar Beach. You know, next to where the amusements are. It's been changed. There's no smell at all now, but hell spells it was back in the day. No need for that, I don't think, really. Barbie. Oh. And the house is pink as well. I kind of dig it. I dig it. Oh, hang on. Got onto the wrong ones there. But I do have more. Don't panic. Kissing. In Germany. They've got Saint Stephanus. Lots of royals. Or Christian royals, should I say. Yeah. Late at night, if you can't find a toilet, you go there. Or maybe you'd prefer to go to the North Sea, to Wangerland. I think we've all visited there one time or another. And maybe you spend a bit of time there yourself. Who knows? Like the fact that there's a red line through it. In other words, don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, this is actually the name of a company. And where do you work? Just don't ask. Don't ask. Yeah, I've been down a few lovers' lanes where that was almost compulsory. I love this. And Fat Ass Boulevard. Brilliant. Now, when I first see signs like this, you think, well, what in their right mind? What I didn't realize that back in the 1920s, in some states in America, they allowed the people that lived in the towns to pick their own road signs. You know, for some of the new estates where there are only 3 or 4 houses. What do you want to call it? I want to call it Aunt Fat Ass Boulevard. All right, then. You never get away with that these days. Yeah, I think that's why it's so dark down there, maybe, perhaps. I love this. And if that's chosen by somebody tremendous, just moved into this house. What do you want to call the street? Fantastic Drive. Yeah. Who wouldn't want to live on Fantastic Drive? Squeeze Gut Alley. That's because it was so narrow and people were quite portly back then. There's Gay Street that way, or Church Street the other way, and never the twain shall meet. Chicken Dinner Road. Can't go wrong. I had some pakoras yesterday. Oh, they were good. Psychopath Pavement. What happened on that street? Yeah. Penis Road. Okay. Wonder when that was erected. Monkey's Eyebrow. Great. What a name for a town. You are now entering Monkey's Eyebrow. Now, if you live on Canal Street, it's only a matter of time. It's kind of like living in a certain town that is just on the A1 that keeps getting the sign changed regularly into something unpleasant. Shan't mention it because they hate me mentioning it. But if you live on Canal Street, it's only a matter of time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Would you have done that? I'd be right behind you if you did. You are now entering Licking County. Might be a thing. 2 left. Atmosphere there is buzzing. And finally, yeah. You can imagine saying, well, what do you want to call this lane down to your farm? It bloody stinks. Call it. It's just the fact that somebody said, okay, and then put it on a map. Brilliant. Anyway, that's it for tonight. Oh, I tell you what I haven't done. I haven't had a quick rally down your comments, and I must do that. So let me go to the top, and I'll just pick the bigger, juicier ones, as I always do. And no, that's a message to someone else. People talking about the temperature. That's fine too. And my sitting room. Hi, everybody. Oh, that's just Katrina talking about who's there and who's not. Karen. No messages for me. That's just all right. I don't mind. Any questions or anything that people, how dare you judge me? Oh, dear. This is the thing. If you want to play, just play nice. Don't criticize people. Don't be negative about anything. No town like Newcastle. Proud to be a Geordie, even though I've lived in Doncaster since I was 2, says Karen. A Dave Berry song. No, you're quite right. Hi, Alan. Oh, this is Barry. I got accepted into a PhD program today. Brilliant, Baz. Good on you, man. Well done. Karen said, I was taken in the hospital when I was 6 months old. They gave me 6 hours to live. I'm still here. Gastroenteritis used to kill a lot of babies back then. There you go. Sarah, I was gutted when the tuxedo closed 2 years before I turned 18. Never got a chance to go. Trust me, it wasn't really all that. It had its moment for about 18 months, and then it got just tacky as a lot of them. There you go. Steve says that effing sign is fake. Who knows? Karen, in a local graveyard in Doncaster, there's a bloke called Le Fuk Chan. We'll send you a picture next time I go. There you go. There you go. And Matthew says, hello. And other people say it. And Barry says, thank you. You're welcome. Anyway, that's it. Where are we tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow. 7:30. The clues are, and it's one sentence. Where we're going to Costco and the plate. We're going to Costco and the plate. Any idea? We're going to Costco and the plate tomorrow night, 7:30. Thanks to each and every one of you. Hope you've enjoyed our little blah tonight. We will have more blaring next week. We look forward to your company. Until we are together again, thank you very much. As always, keep spreading the word. And until 24 hours hence, or 23, technically, good night, good bless you, and I wish you well.